I'm joined today by Emma Crowhurst, who many of you will know is a chef, a cookery writer and an author. And it's a real pleasure to invite you today, Emma, and
Thank you.
chat with you. So I'd like to start by kind of revisiting some parts of your career that I think some of our viewers will know of you from the kind of television era. So that's kind of taken you quite way back in your earlier exploits with cookery. Tell me a little bit more about how that all came about and your sort of first love with cookery.
Going even further back than that, when I was at school, I had a real passion for sort of creating and cake decorating, and I'm sure that a lot of people get into it that way. You know, it's accessible for children.
So, which is where you began. You were.
Yeah, I mean, my mum is not a great cook, but she let me do it, and I think that's the thing. And I made a wedding cake for my stepsister when I was about 14, and that was another really good sort of project to get your teeth into. Then I went to catering college in Sussex, and having not achieved sort of my potential at school, I then flew when I was at catering college and was student of the year. It was a 2-year general catering course.
Amazing, so quite a big shift in terms of kind of where you were academically.
Yeah, very much.
Really excelling in something
Absolutely.
you just felt a love for.
Absolutely, and I think since one of my daughters has been diagnosed with dyslexia, I feel pretty sure that I am and was dyslexic then, but of course in those days you were just stupid.
So do you feel you were written off?
And I can remember actually saying to the teacher, Mrs. Harris, funnily enough, that's what I want to do anyway. I want to go to catering college and I want to do these things, and you know, I felt that I would be at home there, and I certainly was. I mean, I did really well and loved every moment of it.
Wow, amazing.
And then I had a job long before anyone else did in London, working at a small restaurant, which they kept open for me for sort of 2 months. And by the time I moved, I hadn't even got anywhere to live, but I was determined to start my career and start my life as I saw it.
Was it the desire to earn money?
Yep.
As a strong woman?
Absolutely.
That was really
Yeah, independence.
important to you?
I wanted to leave home. I wanted to make my way, and leaving Crawley, it's a no-brainer. I didn't have anywhere to live, so my head chef popped me in a little flat with his mother-in-law. And then I found my own place to live in West Hampstead. So I was working in a small restaurant called Capability Brown in West Hampstead. So I worked there for 1.5 years, and my aim there was that I would learn everything, and then when I'd learned everything, I would leave. So I used to waitress in the evening, do my day shifts in the kitchen, and then 1.5 years later, I got a job at Leith's restaurant in Notting Hill Gate.
So was there a burning desire in the back of your mind, or quite consciously, that you wanted to run your own restaurant?
No, not really. At that stage, I think I just wanted to learn, keep learning, and work with as many people as possible. Just keep learning. And I think that sort of desire to work with as many people as possible and to learn, I could already see that was the path that would, you know, you don't just open a book and think, that's it, I can do it. And I think one of the problems these days is that people see the sort of glamorous side of things, but like nursing or chefing or teaching, you know, there's so much hard work that goes into it. Absolutely. And I think that is a bit of an issue when people think they can do those things without having to sort of put the work in. And catering is a really tough job for anybody, let alone a woman.
You talk about that kind of tough environment, so tell me a little bit more about the gender bias back then in the catering environment. So where was it in terms of the balance of men and women in the kitchen, and how was a female treated?
Well, I was mostly the only woman ever in the kitchen, and if another woman was employed, I would be thinking, great, bit of sort of, you know, female representation here, and then very disappointed when they didn't last, for whatever reason. And it was really tough. I mean, the environment was tough, and if you were black, gay, a woman, or not, or some other thing that set you differently rather than a sort of, you know, nice white boy, you had the piss taken out of you, and that was part of the culture.
So Emma, you talk about that environment back then and what labels may have caused in that kind of environment in the kitchen situation, and you know, perhaps as a woman, perhaps as a black person, a gay person, what it might have been like back then. How does that make you feel when we now talk about the Metoo movement that's very widely discussed in the media? Do you reflect on those periods in your history and think, that was brilliant, that was harassment?
Oh, definitely. I don't think, because as the minority, I don't think that you had a voice. And also, although it was in no way akin to the casting couch, obviously, there was still a sense that, you know, the head chef was in control. And if you didn't play the game his way, you would be either out, simply, or your life would be so difficult that you would want to leave anyway. Now, I mean, I was pretty tough, but I had friends that I went to catering college with who had a very early experience and was obviously touched up, roughed up, or some experience with a head chef, and she never went into catering again. So that was it for her, end of her career, because some man felt that it was his privilege and right to take advantage of her just because she was a woman. I mean, you know, it isn't fair. And the idea that now all these people are being called out and women are standing up and saying, at last, having the bravery to, and the sisterhood to say, you know, and why that hasn't happened before, I don't know, because I've always felt that with women in kitchens, I would offer them all the support, and there was never any sense of, I'm here, therefore you can't be. It was just, you know, anywhere that there's men and women together, the more equality there is, the better for everybody.
So you believe more in women as collaborators more than competitors?
Oh, absolutely.
I think even in business today, there's one set of women who think, oh my goodness, another woman in this environment, she's a threat. She's a threat to me because she's in my trade, she's in my sector. And then other women will view it, great, there's another woman doing the same thing in my industry.
Yeah, because I'm not threatened by anybody, man or woman. And what I want is for as many people to enjoy what I like to do. So that's where the teaching as well is such a delight, because men and women, young and old, I enjoy passing on something that is dear to me and that I love. So, you know, why wouldn't you be enjoying having other people in your same environment?
So tell me about how the door knock came that said, Emma, come be on television, and tell us about chefing.
So having worked at Leith's restaurant, again I was the only woman there for all that time, and then I was introduced to Leith's cookery school, and they said, oh, you'd be perfect to come and be a junior teacher at the school. So I left, I did a few other things in between, but then eventually ended up at Leith's cookery school, which at the time was one of the top two in London. Le Cordon Bleu and Leith's School of Food and Wine were the two top places. So I started there from the bottom, although I had more experience than a lot of the other teachers because I'd worked in restaurants and most of the others hadn't.
So question, were you the only woman?
No, mostly women. And
okay.
Then, and that was
that was where there was a shift, to go into the teaching environment and the balance shift.
Yeah, I can remember thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can work in this environment, because prior to that, working with men in kitchens, someone tells you to do something, they don't dress it up in a flowery way, you do it. And you do it straight away without having to be asked twice. Whereas working in an environment with all ladies, it's a bit different, because you know, you can't just say to someone, can you do that? You have to say, I wonder awfully, would you mind, could you possibly?
Thoroughly
and I wasn't experienced at all in that sort of environment, and even from the days of college, where the chef just says jump and you've already done it. That was my experience of, you know, I'm good at taking instruction and I'm good at giving instruction, but it's just, you know, bullet points, unfortunately. So I did used to get into trouble a lot, and I'd like to think I've softened up, but sometimes I know my husband will say I haven't. But so working at Leith's many years, and eventually I was the head teacher there, and then I did Tricks of the Trade with Prue Leith, where she spoke and I did all the skivvying, and that was a series of 10-minute shows. And then we did Chef School, which was a sort of fly-in-the-wall / cookery show. So we followed the students in the beginner's term, and my class was the younger class, so they followed me a lot because mine were the naughty ones. And I actually got hate mail because they said I bullied the students, you know, and I'd be like, pull your trousers up, you know, and also sort of, I mean, the students loved me, so the idea that people thought that I was bullying was, it's just me being direct, which, you know, is probably an acquired taste, I would say. From there, I became pregnant with beautiful daughter number 1, and just about the same time, so I think I'd already done Ready Steady Cook by then. Did about 3 lots of Ready Steady Cook, 3 lots of The Generation Game, twice with Bruce Forsyth and once with Jim Davidson. And then I got the call to come and try out to be Anthony Royal Thompson's new person on the food and drink programme. So I was pregnant with Tilly and didn't tell them because I thought I don't want my chances to be affected by whether or not I was pregnant. So I had to do a cooking demo with Anthony where we had to taste liver, blue cheese, and all the other things that you're not supposed to taste.
Amazing.
But having worked at Leeds and tasting sort of 32 lots of food every day with some bad hygiene from people, I mean, I felt that I had a cast iron stomach. So, and it certainly didn't bother me, and I did it, and then I got the job. So for the next sort of 2 years, I was doing 3 series of the food and drink programme, which was really good fun. And so I'd take Tilly with me. They'd send a limo, and I had Tilly, babe in arms, and my mum would come to look after baby Tills. And so Tilly would be in Anthony's library with my mum, and I'd be filming, and then I'd go out and breastfeed, and you know, I mean, they were very good to me. It was good fun.
You miss those days in the limelight on television?
Well, I think the thing is, I realised at the time that it was not real, that it's like a gardening person who's really good at gardening, then going and doing their stuff on the TV. It's a bonus. It's not the real thing. I think working in television, if working on television becomes your goal, excuse me, Yorkshire puddings. You know, if working on television becomes your goal, then when it all ends, you've got nothing to fall back on. But if what you do happens to work on television, then you can carry on and do other things. So I had Tilly, then I had another child, Bobby, girl, and then we moved out here when Bobby was 2.5 from London to Suffolk. And she's sitting over there. And then I still was doing a bit of filming and really enjoying looking after the children. I also contributed to a website, everything to do with food, obviously. And then I started. I was interviewed actually by Mark David. He interviewed me for the Suffolk magazine, and then said you'd be great to come and work for us. So I used to do a few days over there. I used to work at a cookery school in Northampton called Firmin Woods, and I mean everything has always come along just at the right time. As one thing has finished, another thing has started.
That sort of process really fascinates me.
It's amazing.
Do you believe in the kind of path of fate and destiny, and are you somebody that believes things happen when they're meant to happen? Or do you ever go to bed thinking, what about this? Where's this money coming from? What will the next thing be? Or do you think your best advantage in life is you don't think like that?
I don't know whether, I don't think I believe in fate, because otherwise one could do nothing and you just expect things to happen. But I mean, that pretty much is what has happened. I mean, I've been in the right place at the right time. I haven't been very proactive because my family has been my number one priority. And I think one of the reasons why not having a restaurant or going back into restaurants is almost impossible is if you've got a family. If you're going to devote the kind of energy that I would want, I mean, I want to do my very best in everything I do. So having the support that I had when the children were little meant that I could go away for the odd day, 2 or 3 days at a time maybe, to do my best somewhere else. To devote that sort of time and energy that one needs to run a restaurant, I don't think that, for women, I don't think that can go together. And I know nobody says to a man, how amazing, you've built up this business and you've got all these things and you've got a family, because it's always assumed there's a woman behind you. So there is not equality where there should be in that area. And the problem is, because women have babies and are traditionally the child rearers, there will always be that discrepancy until, for example, in our country, we have paternity and maternity leave like they do in some of the Scandinavian countries where you can have a year each.
And research now is saying that actually, even though paternity leave is available, men are scared to be seen to take it.
Yeah, I mean, some men are good. I mean, my husband did lots of childcare when the children were little, and there's no reason why a man can't do just as good as a woman. Obviously, the breastfeeding changes that slightly, but you know, it's one of those things that is going to cause a problem, and it's very difficult to redress the balance.
So tell me about where life has moved to now. You are, as you can see here, you are catering, you're cooking constantly.
I've got a job on Friday where I'm cooking dinner for 25. The starter is canapes, so I'm doing some mini Yorkshire puddings, which are going to be dressed up with some horseradish and beef, so that's quite old-fashioned, but lots of fun. People love that kind of thing. So I've got a nice list of canapes, which I'm going to be making. I mean, I cook all the time anyway, so I would still class it as one of my hobbies, as well as being my career. But I teach at St Joseph's College in Ipswich, which is on the other side of town. So I teach there 2 days a week, teaching primary, so mostly 4, 5 and 6, then 7, 8 and 9. So teaching food, and I love doing that. It's really good fun, action-packed, brilliant practical lessons, and the students there are incredibly lucky that the school value food to give them an hour a week.
That's quite unusual now.
So my students are incredibly lucky. They get an hour a week, theory and practical, and they mostly absolutely love it. I mean, pretty much without exception, it's brilliant. So I do that. I do my cookery classes, and I do those in the kitchens at St Joseph's College. But I also use the Taste Academy, and I have used the Suffolk Food Hall, so I can do larger things. I did a private class here over the weekend for 2 people. So depending on the quantity of people, I can use different venues. And I also get asked to do lots of catering and private classes in homes that people hire around Suffolk. So Suffolk is a fabulous destination for people coming out of London or around the country. So they'll hire somewhere, and then either I'll go and do a dinner for them where they can just relax and enjoy, or I'll even go and provide entertainment for hen parties, or you know how they come down and they have like a series of entertainments, you know, whatever they're planning, and I'll go and host a cooking class for them, and sometimes they'll cook their own supper as part of the cooking class. So it makes it quite a sort of economical way to fit in their entertainment. Yeah, and it is, and if they're into cooking and they don't see that as a chore, then it's really super fun, have a really good laugh.
You sound like you still are bursting with enthusiasm about what you do in your world of work.
Absolutely.
Is that true? And is that because of the variety?
I think it's because of the variety, and I've always been lucky enough to mix pretty much equally, I'd say, my family with the other things that I do. So private catering, cooking classes, food writing. I used to write for the East Anglian regularly, and now I contribute now and again, as the food section in the East Anglian has really taken off and they need more full-time people to run that. So I contribute still. I'm on Radio Suffolk a lot. There's always something lovely popping up that just I get asked to do nice things like this. And yeah, I mean, I count myself as really lucky.
And there'll be a lot of people that would look at you and look at your life and say, it's okay for her. But what keeps you strong? What keeps you centred? And what do you think is that kind of pearl of wisdom that you could share with our audience for women that, you know, have times when life's not feeling so good?
Well, there's a lot of drudgery in sort of keeping the house going, and the emphasis being on you keeping it afloat. But I think that you can't look to anyone else to make you happy. You've got to make yourself happy, and if you're happy, then you can start to make use of everything else. And I mean, one of the things that I would say we have with us, with me and my daughters, or maybe one of my daughters, is a very low joy threshold. You know, we're not cynical. We enjoy all the small things that happen, from the silly, I mean, and we make fun and have fun of all the sort of little things that could make us happy, and we're excited all the time about really stupid things. And I love running, which I think is really good for mental health, because we have the Finn Valley just behind where we live, and it's just stunning. So that will tick 3 boxes: bird watching, wildlife, and exercise. So even if sometimes I'm so in awe of all the beauty around me, I have to walk. I'll still be out for an hour running and come back feeling, you know, incredible. The endorphins and all the sort of mental health side of it is amazing. But being outside in the countryside is one of my favourite things. And my idea of a good night out, this will say a lot about me, is walking over to the Tuddenham Fountain through the Finn Valley, having a nice dinner and a glass of wine, and then walking back in the dark on a moonlit night without a torch. So that is a top night for me. I don't want to be in a bar or I mean, I do love dancing, disco dancing. We have some great discos in this kitchen. But, you know, that's, for me, hearing an owl or seeing a badger, I know, I'm so sad, is like top of the list. It's really exciting for me. So taking pleasure in the small things, I would say. Being grateful for what you've got. Don't do too much social media. I mean, sometimes I might find myself looking at Facebook or Instagram, and actually, you have to remind yourself that what you're seeing is not real. It is what people want to show you, and the window into other people's lives. It's not real, and it can make you feel. You can feel yourself thinking, I'm not doing that. I haven't been on 3 holidays this year. I haven't, and it's just not good for you because you will never be satisfied through social media. All it will do is make you feel inadequate.
So it creates an inferiority.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm really, really worried for our young people. I mean, I feel pretty confident that my daughters are sensible and they can see the balance and they know that these things, some of these things aren't real. But I worry for mental health in young people generally because I just think there is so much negativity that you take from someone else's so-called perfect life.
Tell me a little bit more about WI, Emma. I know you're involved with WI. There's a bit of a badge across the word WI, yes, isn't there? And it still exists.
It does, because the WI is supposed to be about sisterhood and supporting other women and all that kind of thing. So those of us that are in this new WI would like to be a little bit more political. It's not jam and Jerusalem and cakes, although there's a lot of that. We would like to be able to give something back. So at the moment I'm just sort of talking with people about offering free cookery lessons at maybe women's refuges, homeless shelters, just quick, tiny little things, food banks, all that kind of thing. So we have a little subgroup in our WI called Food and Feminism, where it's about talking about women's issues and eating nice things, but not just that, we actually want to do something. So hopefully that will all be forthcoming, because I can earn a lot of money doing private lessons, so it's time for me to give something back and to do, to help people for whom simple tasks like cooking and choosing produce and being able to cook just aren't in their sphere. They don't have the knowledge. Schools aren't teaching cookery properly. Parents don't have time to teach people to cook, and there's 2 or 3 generations who don't know how to do the basic things. And knowledge is power. You can't go into a supermarket and buy raw ingredients if you don't know what to do with them. So that's something that I'm interested in. Music, love music, and the whole sort of family thing, and Suffolk. Really, really love being in Suffolk.
You're kind of a new resident to Suffolk in some respects.
Oh yes.
You very much feel it's under your skin now.
I think so. I mean, I think when we moved here, Alistair, my husband's parents lived in Harwich. My mother had moved to Sudbury. So we felt with young children, it was a no-brainer that we should move closer to have the support that they could offer, and also that our children could have relationships with their grandparents that were natural and not just a sort of once-a-year thing. So it's been a really good move, and we love where we live. We're lucky to have all this lovely wildlife, and 10 minutes to the sea, and all the lovely places in the countryside, North Norfolk. I mean, it's just fantastic. But we're still within an hour and a half of London, so we can visit our friends. It's nice.
Emma, I know we will be in touch with you regularly, and looking forward to doing more with you on Eloquently Her. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for coming.